Good evening. Good evening, and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this afternoon. First thing is first, we need to listen to the big man, Chris Sutton, before we get into any conversations this evening.
Let's get it right. The result yesterday, I don't think it came as a great shock. Celtic have been bang average all season. And I know Brendan in the week was talking about the recent form and winning 8 out of the last 9.
Yeah.
The wins have papered over the cracks, really. Performances haven't been there. I don't think Celtic are kidding anyone. You know, they're not a good team this season. There's not, and everybody talks about stuff about the board and signings, and this being a long time in the making, this particular moment coming round. But Brendan Rodgers has to take responsibility. I can't think of one player this season at Celtic who he has improved. And that's on the manager. You know, you look at the points that Celtic have dropped domestically. Forget about the Champions League campaign, which was a disaster. If you just look at Celtic domestically in isolation, they've been poor. You know, they've been outplayed. I can't remember the last time a Celtic team were outplayed in halves of football by so many teams as they have been this season. And that's on that's on Brendan. Why is it that I think we've touched on the wide players before. You know, you think about Fast and Furious under Ange Postecoglou. The brand of football they're playing is slow. It's predictable. There isn't a fear factor at this moment in time when teams go up against Celtic. The teams fancy getting a result. So you know, the result yesterday, bad result as it was for Celtic, it wasn't a great surprise to me. I don't think it was a great surprise to anybody based on what we've seen this season.
And that is it. That is it. That is it. It's as simple as that, as the big man Chris Sutton said. Where do we go for there? Where do we go from here? Make sure you give it a thumbs up. Just checking the audio. Yeah, so right. Let's get back to the comments section. Do something. That is it. Right. Fine with that. Turn it up, Baz. Does that sound better now? I can hear it coming through here, so it sounds better. Yeah, that's it. Has to be okay. Sounds a lot better now. I'll just make sure the volume is at full pelt. Where did we go from yesterday? It's one of those games where, you know, you need to get over the negativity. We do need to get over the negativity. And, you know, we've been bad. We've been bad all... We've not been bad. We've just not been playing at our best. We've definitely not been playing at our best. We've not been able to kill teams off. And it's been a problem. It's been a problem. Hi, Kate. How are you? And I was going to get in touch with you, Kate, actually. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Chilpel watched them today, and they are rotten. Look, I don't want to really talk about them. What does John Kennedy do? Says Big Mental Shug. John Kennedy has been at the club for years now. He's been in the coaching staff for years, and for me, he's just not. He's not doing it. If you ask me personally, he's not doing it. Why is there no sound? Just checking that. Yeah, John Kennedy. We have more flappers in our team than a flock of geese. Look, settle. It's not over until it's over. One of these derbies. It's poor. Can we pull it out? Can we? My brother texted me today. One of my younger brother, and he said to me, "This looks like Ange Postecoglou's first season at Celtic." Well, we're behind at the beginning of the season. We get ourselves in front for a good bit, and then we lose a game towards the run-in. CCV has been back. He's back in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to read another one. There's a story that's kicking about say about Leila Bada. Leila Bada's agent has seemingly been in Glasgow to try and thrash out a deal for him for Abada to leave Celtic on a permanent basis to America. But the Americans are saying what Celtic want for him is not worth it. It is problematic. Um, that's coming out in an Israeli paper, Sport 5. And Hail 67 have just posted it. Also, Celtic lambasted the Celtic manager. Not surprised, says Brendan Rodgers. The options are limited as Rangers take top spot. The 1-1 draw on Saturday allowed them to, and let's face it, for them not to have went top today, we would have had to win by at least 3 or 4 every game, every game. And I'm not going to say, look, they got penalties or whatever. And I never watched the game today. I don't know how good they played. I don't know how bad they played. I'm not interested. The fact that when you look at the last 5 games, the last 5 games that Celtic, Hearts, and Rangers have played, Celtic have drawn 2 of the last 5 games. Rangers and Hearts have won the last 5 games. That is the difference. That is the difference. And that's what makes you champions. Smell the glove, ignored already. Going to change the name to Jungle Line. Try Ascom. Smell the glove, what you ignored for I've read. I'm not watching, reading all the comments. Go to Ascom if you want. I don't care. I'm not taking any shit off anybody tonight. When's the last time Celtic actually played well? Probably when we beat that mob. The problem is we have where do we go from here? We go on winning. We keep on winning. It's as simple as that. We need to keep on winning. We can't give up now. You can't give up now when there's still more than a dozen games left to the end of the season. Let me just say, Lorna Gallagher, smell of love. Hello to you, Brendan must go. He's only half the problem. If Brendan goes at this stage of the season, we are not going to win the league. Simple as that. We're not going to win the league. Simple as that. If Brendan goes just now, we're not going to win the league. If he stays, we might not win the league. But if he goes just now, the turmoil that would cause, because you're then going to bring in, you're going to bring in a manager that's going to be here on a temporary basis. You're not bringing in a manager. Stop drinking, start smoking. I haven't even had a drink today. I'm drinking fucking Fanta lemon, Fanta bloody lemon. If Brendan Rodgers goes just now, right? Who do we bring in? As we limped over the line against a 10-man Rangers team. When you look back to the end of last season, we limped over the line towards the end of last season. Now, whether you like it or not, our team, once we won the league with about 6 games to go, Ange Postecoglou showed us exactly what we were going to get this season. He's shown every single one of us in the last remaining 5 games what we were going to get this season, and nobody's seen it. Nobody's seen it. Neil Warnock or Lennon wished. It's not Brendan's fault. Honestly, I'm not saying it's Brendan's fault. I'm not saying it's not Brendan's fault. It is Brendan's fault we're in this predicament. But what I am saying is, Ange Postecoglou gave us a little insight to what we would expect this season. He brought on all the players that we were basically playing with this season, and they're not good enough. They're not good enough. And he must have thought, right, and this is the reason that we had so many people coming in at the summer. So, yeah, Big Ange seen it, and Big Ange buggered off. So, the board are fully to blame for this one. The board are completely to blame for it. Say Neil Lennon and Slater's today could be nothing. He's not going in. He's got to agree with you. Sack Rodgers, game over. Is it true though? If we sack Brendan Rodgers just now, you're going to bring in a manager that's going to be here on a part-time basis, right? He's going to be a manager to see us to the end of the season. He's going to be stuck with Kennedy. He's going to be stuck with Strachan, right? He's going to be stuck with A2 anyway. So what's the point in sacking the manager just now? What's the point of sacking the manager when we're only 2 points behind in the league? If we drop another 5 or 6 points and we get to and then get to the split and it's we're out the Scottish Cup. Yeah, then I could say, like Brendan, it's not been working this year. you had the perfect opportunity to go back to what Chris Sutton said at the beginning of the video. When you goes to the Champions League, the excitement that we had, well, I had on the live, the day that the draw was made for the Champions League, it was the best draw we've had in years for the Champions League. And the fact that this team couldn't finish third, that's all we were expecting. We wanted to finish third so we could drop down into the Europa. Now, if you want to talk about Europa, and if you want to talk about Scottish football, maybe Europa is at our actual level. Getting into the Champions League is all fine and dandy, and getting that big pot of cash for the board to just sit in a bag and keep in the bank and say, "Oh, look, the bean pickers are pointing away and saying it's brilliant." But when we go into the Champions League, we're getting nowhere near anywhere that we should be. And I always say that this season we should have finished third in the Champions League. It was there for the taking, and we didn't do it. The Europa League is our level all day long. It's now the case that they're into the other end. I mean, let's not think that there's some fucking magical team in Europe, because let's face it, they were in the Champions League and they got a trophy for being the worst ever team in the Champions League. So they can say that, oh, we're top of the league and we're still in Europe. Yeah, fine, fair enough. But when it comes to the Champions League, they're just as bad. They're just as bad. They're not as in fact they're worse. They're worse than Celtic in the Champions League, and they've got the history books will show that. So we need to there has to be something. There has to be massive changes this summer, and for me, it has to be backroom staff. It has to be backroom staff. When you look at a manager that was going to come in before Ange Postecoglou, and we waited 5 or 6 months for him, and then when it came to the crunch, nah, you can't bring your backroom staff, mate. You're getting stuck with Kennedy and fucking young Strachan. And the guy's like, that's not happening. Like, that's not happening. I'm, I'm away. I'd rather sit without a job, mate, than no bring my backroom staff. And that's what a good manager would do. Let me just see this. I felt Jota. Oh, of course, James. My brother's trying to text me. Right, let's get some of the comments in. Kuhn is stinking. Michael says, I don't think at the moment we could beat anyone in Europa League. All I'm saying is maybe it is our level. The fact that they can go into the Europa League and get through, they topped their group and they're getting through into the other side of Christmas in the Europa. We should have been aiming for that in the Champions League. I mean, we finished bottom. The, that's not even worth talking about the Champions League. Rodgers won't walk, but a mutual termination perhaps at the end. That would mean that Celtic would need to pay off roughly about £5 million worth. £4 million to pay off Rodgers. Maybe that's why they're banking the money. It, it would cost them. Fucking Doug's just away with it. It would cost Celtic at least about £4 million. He's on what is he on £3.5 million a year or something? So it's going to cost at least £4 million up front. And he'll even then he would say nah, because then there's tax coming after that. I'd be all sticking around. You need to give me more money than that. So anyway, mind the night of the draw. Well, great crack enthusiasm on that night. Yes, Sean, there was the draw for the Champions League that night. I was over the moon. I was completely over the moon with the fact that we got such an easy draw for a change. Usually, when we get a Champions League draw, you're like, seriously, man, it's a group of death. It's a complete group of death. Anyway, couldn't 5-year deal. That's crazy, says Stephen. Rodgers won't walk. Yeah, we've just seen that one. Lowell, ego killing the club, banning fans, buying players, not consulting Brendan, etc. Yeah, it's Neil. It's Lowell all over it, isn't it? It's got Lowell all over it. There'd been no issue with fans for the past 2 years before Lowell comes back. Lowell comes back and he's got his little sidekick that's still head of security. If we paid Rodgers off tomorrow, it would be a shrewd investment. San Fran Celtic, we would not win the league tomorrow. You've then got to get in a manager. You've then got to get in a manager that's going to come in part time. Any decent manager worth his salt is not sitting about waiting on a Celtic phone call. Right? He's not sitting unemployed saying, a good manager is employed at a club. We have to go after a manager that is doing something in Europe, that knows how to get the best out of young players. and that has a bit more tactical awareness. This nonsense that we need to get rid of Brendan Rodgers just now, as much as I would like to say, and nah, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense just now. It doesn't make sense. And that's just my own personal opinion. We're all entitled to our opinion. After the shamble, Roger should walk for free and his dignity stays when the Tim. At our AGM this year, blank lack of ambition. Yep, we are kings of Scotland. Clearly, forgot about Europe. Yeah, well, yeah, we want his full 9 million. The thief. Well, you can say whatever you want about him, but you've had a guy James McCarthy that sat at Celtic taking 2 million a year out of us or something. Or is it 2 million for his whole contract? Who knows? But anyway, what's the story with Abada? Abada, his agent has been in Glasgow trying to get a release clause from Celtic. They're trying to get him sold to someone in America. But the Americans are basically saying that what the money that Celtic want is far too much. They cannot afford them. So anyway, there's no that seems to be the point. The Celtic want 9 million for him, and the Americans don't want to pay 9 million for Abada as a player. Either it's Wayne Briggs. Apparently, the 5-year deals are to fall in line with the UEFA fair play and financial rules. Chilwell says, I think there were qualifiers this year. I didn't think there were qualifiers this year. And I'm not so sure about that. When is Hatate due back? No idea. Celtic will keep him under wraps. It's probably going to be about 3 or 4 weeks. By then, the league is done and dusted. If you ask me, the league could be done and dusted for the bad way. Francis, who scouted Palmer and Kuhn? They're both left worse than a man shot. Well, there up steps your man, Mark Lowell. Mr. Mark Lowell, who allegedly is going to be leaving the club this summer, which means that there seems to be a power struggle at Celtic Park once again. Once again. And this is the worry that I've got going into this summer. Never mind what happens in the. Never mind what happens in with the league, right? The league will take care of itself. If we win it, we win it. We're champions, and then we feel a bit of elation, but there's obviously a power struggle going on at Celtic Park at the moment, behind the scenes when it comes to the Lawwells and Brendan Rodgers, and I think it's all down to money again, again. We never seem to have this problem under Ange Postecoglou. It was like, here you go, Ange, just spend what you want. Somebody said in one of the comments earlier that Ange Postecoglou hasn't signed a single Asian player for Tottenham Hotspur. So why did he sign so many for Celtic? It was an interesting comment, and obviously because he knew that market and he knew he could get cheap players there, and the the way that Celtic need to change. They need to change this business model slightly. They have to be more risk, and there we have it. There we have it. Lorna has said it. Hey, Uncle Stuart. It's never alive without the Lorna and Stuart show. Yes, right, let's get back to some more of the comments. More chance of me becoming a black pope than winning any silverware. Oh, Jesus. Desmond needs to get a grip of his club. James, I've said this many times, but there seems to be, it's not just Desmond's club, right? There are another two guys in Scotland who own over 17. Desmond shares is only something like 29 million or something shares that he owns. And that's going up. There are two Scottish guys who one owns about £11 million worth of shares, and another owns £6 million worth of shares. They're the second and third largest shareholders in Celtic. And it's not who you would think it was. It's not Brian Dempsey or any of that lot. And it's what is their end game? The father will sack his son to save his own neck. He will that. I don't think he'll sack his son, but he'll make sure that he passes on. No identity whatsoever. You need to start paying us, Baz. You need to start paying us. Oh, dear. Baz, he has the most to share. Um, Square ball, no identity. Fans void would push the share price through the floor, force change. Nah, they don't go with that. They won't go with that. What I should have been on yesterday with Rocky and Scales to left back and Bernabe left in the dressing room. Chilpel, we've been talking about 3-5-2. When the fact that Rocky was on the bench, you could have went with a three at the back quite easily yesterday. You could have brought on Awata to sit in that holding midfield role and push Callum McGregor further forward. And then that would have mixed things up a bit. But Brendan Rodgers just doesn't seem to have that in mind. He seems to think that the two defenders can do pretty well. For me, Brett, I was I wasn't over the moon when Brendan came back. I seen it as our owner. Our owner's only stepped up twice before. He stepped up for when Martin O'Neill got the job, and he stepped up for when Brendan got the job the first time. The fact that when he came to Glasgow, our glorious owner and his son, and they offered Ange Postecoglou the world, as far as they were concerned, they offered him the world, and then you've got to remember Ange Postecoglou told them, wait, let's wait to the end of the season. Let's wait to the end of the season. So he knew exactly what was going on behind the scene. He knew that the Lawwells had a different idea to what our owner has. And our owner can't come in and he can come in and fucking overthrow the board. But then we're back to the bad old days of the Whites and Kellys. So Mark Boy said 3-5-2. The only thing is would still pass side to side and backwards. Brendan Rodgers was moaning about that yesterday, so um, I'm not too sure what we think about that. Baz, does McGregor still have balls to be captain? That's an interesting one because he's lost a bit of form. You've got to remember, Callum McGregor came through Celtic at a time when there was a lot of experienced players with him. Right, there wasn't as many younger players on the pitch. He had an experienced team. It wouldn't surprise me if Callum McGregor feels let down by Celtic, and not Brendan Rodgers. He feels let down by Celtic, not getting the type of player in that can take Celtic to that next level. As a club and as a fan, we all want that. And clearly, being the captain of the club, it can be, and he has that emotional tie to the club also, that he's been at the club for such a long time. I think when Callum McGregor looks back at this period, this season, when he looks back on this season, he'll feel that the club took a step backward. When you think of all the exciting players that Callum's played with over the years on the pitch, it, it is a big step backwards. You know, it's a massive step backwards. It's managed decline is a word that we used under Gordon Strachan. Celtic are managing, going through a period of managing decline. People are then saying it's as if the Lawwells want to have the Rangers up there doing as best as they can so that the fact that it can make the league more appealing so they can try and get a better TV deal. You know, there's all these allegations going about, but we'll never ever know. Celtic will win the league, says Mo, who's right out there. Calmac isn't the captain we need. Who is then, James? Who is the captain? Who do we have at Celtic right now that can fulfil the captain's role to the standard of of Scott Brown, who commanded the team quite well for a lot of years, for Neil Lennon, Paul Lambert, you know, Jackie McNamara before him. Who do we have? It's a serious question. If Callum McGregor's not that person that knows Celtic inside out, right, and that has that affiliation, who do we make captain? Who do we make captain? How can you doubt McGregor? He's barely missed a game for years, the most consistent player by far. Exactly. Hart for captain. Hart's leaving Celtic at the end of this season. Hart, did you see the interview with Hart yesterday? Come on. Really? Did you see that interview with Joe Hart? Cameron Carter Vickers? Nah. Nah. I don't think so. Lawwell's handed said, well, 50 million quid. I hope it was worth it. Lawwell says, Christopher. Neil Kelly says, if McGregor is not the captain, I don't see any others who are leaders. I don't see anyone else on the pitch that are leaders either. It was either going to be James Forrest or Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor was the obvious choice because he plays in that middle of the park. You know, Callum McGregor was obviously the obvious choice because he plays in that bit in the middle of the park. James is coming to the end of his career, so um, Big Joe's leaving. Like, talking about Joe Hart, he's leaving at the end of this season. He's leaving at the end of the season, and we can get over it. Um, and for me, there's only one person that can be captain just now, and that's Callum McGregor, whether you like it or not. And and I'm going to give you the reasons that Callum McGregor should be captain. He's got the experience of winning leagues. And he's got the trophy haul, right, to prove it. He knows what it takes to win, right? Callum McGregor, where is it? Callum McGregor said today, he said yesterday after the game, the midfielder was hugely disappointed with the 1-1 draw. The slip up that handed the initiative. McGregor admits that some of the Celtic new boys quite haven't got the message, but has urged them to find a winning mentality quick before the trophy gets out of our grasp. Some of the new boys haven't got the message yet. They've not got it in your head that this is, you have to win every game. So that's it. There's no ifs and no buts. You can't get to the last 20 minutes of a game. You know, Callum McGregor's starting to feel it. Some of the younger, this is a quote from Callum McGregor, some of the new boys quite haven't got the message yet, but he's urged them to find the winning way. He says it's a big job now to turn it around. There are 12 games to go and we have to find a way. We have to get through. And to everyone, we have to get it through to everyone and make them understand what is required here. What is required here? He says, how we play here, there are non negotiables. There are non negotiables, Callum McGregor says. We don't do that, a team suffers. We have 12 games to solve it. Who else knows that about Celtic? Who else knows that mentality about Celtic? Come on, tell me. Because right now, Joe Hart, not a chance. We've all been, you're all saying Joe Hart. You're the exact same people that have been saying we need a new keeper. We need a new keeper. You've been saying that for about a season and a half. We need a new keeper. And then you're shouting Joe Hart needs to be captain. Come on. Oh dear. What a laugh it is tonight, isn't it? Anyway, Goodson. Rogers out, Goodson in. Yes, I think that's it. I agree with you. Baz McGregor is the only player for captain for me, says Stuart. Don't give a fuck what Calum says and do your talking on the park. Yes. Who's on the censorship today? And there's a couple of spanners and on Hun Watch, so don't worry about that. Kieran, that's who I wanted to start with. Let me just see. Dream Machine says Scales, Bernaby, Welsh were all earmarked to leave, yet played yesterday. That's a cracking comment, by the way. That is a cracking comment. That is a fair play to you, Dream Machine. If I could highlight that, I would. So Green Machine says Scales, Bernaby, and Welsh were all earmarked to leave. Scales was going back to Aberdeen at the start of the season. Bernaby was meant to be getting sold, but we couldn't get anybody to buy him. And then Greg Taylor gets injured, so that's the last transfer window. Stephen Welsh was meant to be leaving at the end of this season, but Brendan Rodgers sought in his wisdom to give him another 5-year deal. There's one common denominator. There is one common denominator, and it's Brendan Rodgers. It is Brendan Rodgers. Big Mad Mental Shug says, don't get too much of a sugar high on, on a can of what? Kieran McKenna for don't know about that one. Falcon Roof says no Celtic fan has a clue what Rodgers is trying to do with the team. Exactly. Rodgers doesn't even know because his expansive high press and doesn't work. Scenaries is coming in from London tonight. Stuart says Calmack is not captain leader. Nobody is in the team. Calmack is not captain leader, but nobody is in the team. Exactly. But he's the only person. He is the only. He is the only player that could be captain at the moment. You're accepting Rodgers should stay. You're accepting the league is over. I don't. If Rodgers goes just now, we will lose the league. Simple as that. If he goes, we'll lose the league. It's as simple as that. You're going to bring a new manager in that's going to try and do some new training things. It's going to take him 2 or 3 games, but then it's done and dusted. It's done and dusted. No team has ever, no team, you show me a team in history that has changed managers with 12 games to go and they've went on to win a league. Because I can't think of any. I can't think of any. What about the bizarre substitutions? Yes, the substitutions just aren't working just now. Anyway, utter garbage, folks suggesting Hart as captain. Exactly, Michael Ross. The fact that Joe Hart is leaving Celtic at the end of this season has now been suggested that Joe Hart might retire at the end of this season rather than going to America. Looks like he's not been given the deal that he probably thought he would get in America. Stephen says, Baz, do you feel comfortable with Scales bringing the ball out from the back? No. And one was no. I think we should be playing a system where we should be playing a 3-5-2 where the 3 defenders don't even cross the halfway line unless it's a corner. Unless it's a corner, I don't want defenders, your centre defenders. I don't want them. If it's a corner, a free kick out on the edge of the box, it's a set piece play. That's the only time that they should be up at that end of the box because it's leaving us wide open. And you see what happens when we get left wide open. The teams are just. And let's face facts. Over the last couple of weeks, right? If you look at Aberdeen, if you look at the Hibs games, there's been games where if they've got a good goal scorer, right, they're burying more goals. We're losing games. We're not being as dominant. And even Big Chris Sutton said it at the beginning of the video. Let's listen to what Chris Sutton said. No, I'll go back and watch it. I'm going to do another video, put that up later. Big Dom, so what about the board? Do we, after we've won nothing this season? Right. Remember the Green Brigades were kept out of Celtic Park. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about protests. There was a lot of talk about protests, and the boys walked out in solidarity. If we win nothing this season, it's then that the fans should take to demonstrating outside the front of the stadium on a daily basis. On a daily basis. Because it's not acceptable to have, as a club that was born out to give money to the poor, right? Celtic wasn't born to be a club that was sitting cash rich. Never. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing to say that Celtic was to sit with a big bank of cash, and it was to look after the needy, and it was to put out a good football team. The PLC have banked cash. They've got the Celtic Foundation that raises its own money separately from the club, and then that gives to the poor. So it's still carrying out its duties on that behalf, but putting out the best team possible on the pitch. They've it is negligent. It is complete negligence by the board. The fact that they've tied the manager's hand behind his back and said, "Nah, we're not going to spend 5 million on a striker at a time where he could have come in to us and scored a barrel load of goals, and then we go out and we get somebody from Norwich City." No disrespect to Adam either. He might turn out to be a fantastic player. But when you had that opportunity, and when Brendan Rodgers said himself, he said, look, he says he thought that the club could have been a bit more daring. He could have pushed the boat out, in other words. He felt that the club could have pushed the boat out. The club's sitting there financially, and this has got Peter Lawwell written all over it again. This has got John McGinn written. It's like John McGinn Mark II. This transfer window just passed has got John McGinn Mark II written all over it. And for me, it wouldn't surprise me if Brendan Rodgers had said, look, okay, I'm off the end of the season. I'm not working with this pish. I'm not working with this. Not at all. Green Brigade are Bampots 2, says Mo. Mo, if it wasn't for the Green Brigade, Celtic Park would have been a morgue yesterday. Right? So why are the Bampots? Go and tell me. Why are the Bampots? Because they sing and put up a couple of banners. If it wasn't for the Green Brigade, teams aren't scared. Teams aren't scared to come to Celtic Park anymore. When are you going to get past this? Teams are not scared to come to Celtic Park. They're not scared because the fans don't back the team the way they used to. and they're not scared of the team on the pitch. You know, if those two things aren't going against them, you know, as simple as that. Teams aren't scared to come to Celtic Park and try and play or try and sit back because as a fan base, we're no making as much noise. We're almost like fucking Man United fans, come from all over the place, fucking sit and eat your prawn sandwiches, your £5 fucking pizza. It's about this size. Anyway, let's not get into an atmosphere over fans. The atmosphere was decent. Could hear the boys and the Green Brigade over the game. Mark Boyce says, and they would get liquidated too. Yeah, I believe that the Ange ball system only lasts 1 year. Following that is burnout. Same as happened to Klopp's Liverpool. Celtic players are burnt out. Are they burnt out, or are they just not playing to the system that Brendan Rodgers maybe wants? And they did have that difficulty at the beginning of the season. They had the difficulty at the end of the season adjusting from the Ange Postecoglou stuff. And I'm going to go back to the end of last season. You know, go and look at the results for the last 5 games of the league last year. He laid it on a plate for us. He laid it on a plate and said, "Look, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening with your club." Brendan, do you think Brendan has been stitched up? Yes, yes. I think he's had a conversation. He's had a conversation with Callum McGregor before he's accepted the job, and there's one thing for sure: you heard the boos at the end. Yes, and where was the boos coming from? Because that wouldn't have been just the Green Brigade and the boys. The boos would be coming from right round the stadium. Baz, give you a shout out for Martin Boys on tour here in Puerto del Carmen. There we go. Shout out to you and boy Martin. The boys are on tour here in Puerto del Carmen. Perfect. Sutton's comments are spot on. Yes, they are. The end of last season was woeful. Exactly. We don't talk about that. You know, we're not talking about the end of last season. That should have that was the wake up call. That was the wake up call as far as we were all concerned. It was the wake up call. It's a disgrace that we're in this position, stays there. And see, my ball says the signs were there. Poor performances. We had won the league. Yeah, exactly. Mark Boy says Brendan needs to speak and tell the fans would have. See, this is where that's a difficult one because if Brendan comes out and says, "Look, I wanted this player, and I wanted this player," and maybe you should, but then again, it's probably the exact reason that he was chased out the door the last time. Chilpo says the board are to blame for not supporting Rodgers. He's to blame for the tactics and the terrible substitutions, yes, but when it comes to the board, are to blame. I completely back you with that one, Chill Pill. Let me just check this. The live's done quite well tonight. It's had over 1,374 views. And the message and the comments are just flying through. Flying through. Right, let me just see what else. About Celtic manager. Right, let's listen to this one again from Chris Sutton. So we'll listen to Chris Sutton again. I'll just get the audio for Chris Sutton. Right. Let's listen to this one again.
Let's get it right. The result yesterday, I don't think it came as a great shock. Celtic have been bang average all season. And I know Brendan in the week was talking about the recent form and winning 8 out of the last 9. The wins have papered over the cracks, really. Performances haven't been there. I don't think Celtic are kidding anyone. You know, they're not the good team this season. There's not, and everybody talks about stuff about the board and signings, and this being, this being a long time in the making. This particular moment coming round, but Brendan Rodgers has to take responsibility. I
Yes,
can't
he
think
does.
of one player this season at Celtic who he has improved. And that's on the manager. You look at the points that Celtic have dropped domestically. Forget about the Champions League campaign, which was a disaster. If you just look at Celtic domestically in isolation, they've been poor. They've been outplayed I can't
Why is
remember
that,
the last.
Chris?
I can't remember the last time a Celtic team were outplayed in halves of football by so many
Yeah.
teams as they have been this season,
Why is
and
it,
that's
Chris?
on that, and that's on Brendan. Well, why is it that you? I think we've touched on the wide players before. You know, you think about Fast and Furious under Ange Postecoglou. The brand of football they're playing is slow. It's predictable. There isn't a fear factor at this
Yeah.
moment in
Nope.
time when teams go up against Celtic. The
Nope.
teams fancy getting a result. So you know, the result yesterday, bad result as it was for Celtic, it wasn't a great surprise to me. I don't think it was a great surprise to anybody based on what we've seen this season. And
That's very true. So there you have Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton says it's been no surprise to anyone. And it all comes down to the one man. It is Brendan Rodgers. Can't hear a thing. Well, there you go. That worked well. Silent. I should have read the comments. I never even read the comments. How did that not come through? It came through earlier on. Ah, fuck it. Anyway, I heard it. That's all that matters. I wasn't even reading the comments. Ah, Jesus, fills in. You've heard it all before. Go and watch it back at the beginning. What a meltdown. Pathetic. 56 in a row. Here we've got him on the jars. And he hidden from the channel. There you go, James Boy 14. It was good having you. It was good having you on the to read it, Baz. I was listening to Chris Sutton, and obviously no volume came through, although it came through at the beginning of the video. Anyway, shows you we've been on for far too long this evening. So on that note, have a fantastic evening, Celtic fans all around the world. I love it.